Testing. Testing. All right, we got that handheld, and we got this handheld, and I can just kind of do this. Okay, I won't get the hips going too much up here.
I'll give these to you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out today, everybody. I hope that we have some more members yet to filter in, because this is a really important presentation and sharing of information today, and a chance to ask questions as well, and to make sure that we as a cooperative, as a management team, as a board and governance authority here, as well as a body of membership and individual members, have the information that we need should there ever be, God forbid, a fire emergency. But we hope is never a plan, so hoping that we don't have that is not good enough. We want to plan and be prepared should there ever be a fire emergency. So I'm really happy today to have Dave E. Miller, who is the fire marshal for Edina, as well as Natalie Young. I don't know your position. Are you? Fire inspector. Have you inspected our building before?
Not yet.
All right. Well, we look forward to when you do. And I wanted to mention about that. Have you done fire inspections yourself for our building, or has it been?
Yep. I do. I run fire prevention, which covers inspections. So.
All right. So I wanted to mention that we, in working together with Michael Ordorf, we welcome whenever the fire department and their inspectors come in and do inspections. And I think I'm happy to report that the fire department, the inspectors, have found things that we have needed to come into compliance with, and we do that. And the reason that I would say, pleased about that is it makes the building safer for all of us here. And we're just happy to have this team here with us this afternoon, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave to present, and we'll have an opportunity for questions.
Thanks for the introduction. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Like it was said, my name is Dave E. Miller. I'm the fire marshal here with Edina. I've been with the city for a little over 16 years now. I spent many of those years on an ambulance and on a fire engine. So I've kind of done a number of jobs through the fire department, and over the last four years, I've had the privilege to run our fire prevention division. So that consists of Natalie. She's our newest inspector. We have two other inspectors as well that their job is to go out to existing buildings in town and do fire and life safety inspections. So that's doing walkthroughs of the building to figure out what portions of the building are still in compliance, and if any areas need cleanup, they work on getting that stuff squared away. We also spend time with new construction. As you know, in Edina, there's a lot of new buildings going in. So we do plan review for fire sprinklers and fire alarms. So we do that in the fire prevention division. We go out and do those inspections on those systems as they're being installed. We also do public education, kind of like this meeting today, where we go out to the public and share our knowledge about fire safety with folks. And that ranges from multifamily buildings like this, where we'll come in, all the way to schools. Fall time, we tend to see, we do kindergarten, first grade. Springtime, we'll do fifth grade. And we also have a new program that we've been doing for the last couple of years with the eighth graders, where we teach them fire forensics. So along with their sciences in 8th grade, they learn how to investigate a fire and apply their science skills to that fire investigation. So that's been a fun program that we've been developing over the last couple of years. But more specifically, what probably interests you folks is the fire safety in your building. If you have questions, we can try and do some in between, but I'll save some time at the end for questions. If you guys have specific questions, I imagine there is stuff of concern that folks want to talk about. But generally, I like to start my presentation by talking about the buildings themselves and kind of what the building provides you guys with from a safety standpoint. Your building specifically is an all-concrete building, which is a good thing because what that does is slows the spread of fire. You have what I call a limited sprinkler system. So you can see this room here, we have sprinkler heads in this room. So this room is covered if there was a fire in here, and your hallways, main corridors throughout the floors are also covered, but your units, you would notice, don't have sprinkler coverage in them. Unfortunately, where we tend to see fires is in the units, right? It's not so much in the hallways. Sometimes it's in common spaces, but it's usually human input that causes fires, most of our fires, I would say, whether that's be cooking or accidental means from candles or stuff along those lines. So all concrete building, partially sprinkled, you have some protection there. You have a fire alarm system in the building as well that will activate on sprinkler flow, but also corridor smoke detection. So there are smoke detectors out in the corridor, the main corridor of your hallways, that would trigger the fire alarm system, alerting the occupants that there is smoke in the building for whatever reason. So early notification is important. I imagine also that all your units probably have carbon monoxide and fire alarms, which are more local devices, so they only speak to you in the unit, right? If you have a fire alarm outside your bedroom or in your bedroom, those are only going to tell you of an emergency in that immediate area, but they don't set the building alarm off. So those are just a couple pieces of the fire safety that the building itself has. And the way I always like to paint the picture for people is that when it comes to building and building protections from fire, the further you get outside of your unit, the more protected that space ends up being. So inside your unit, the walls around you give some form of protection, usually hour to 2 hours, depending on what the rating of the building is, keeping that fire from coming into your unit, but also keeping that fire from spreading from your unit. And then once you exit your unit and you're in the hallway, now that corridor is built specifically with a fire-resistant rating. So usually that's about an hour and a half or somewhere in that neighborhood. So you're a little bit safer out in the hallway, generally speaking. And then as you move to the exits, we don't move to the elevator because I don't think any of your elevators here are programmed as evacuation elevators. Typically in a fire, elevators will generally drop to the ground level for fire service. So we hope that people will use the stairways to try and get out. Once you step foot into a stairway, now you're in a 2-hour enclosure. Those stairways are generally built, especially in a building like yours, built of concrete or block, and they're going to provide you a 2-hour fire resistive rating around you. So even if you were to stay put there on that landing, you're going to be safer there than you are closer to the fire out in the hallway or in your unit, the closer you get that way. So the further you move, and the whole point of the building code is designed around egress, life safety and egress. So it's designed to get you safely out of the building. So you follow that stairway down, and it's going to take you directly to the exterior of the building to a safe place. So that's generally kind of how the building is designed to help keep you guys somewhat safe, just from a practical standpoint. The most protective we'll see in new construction is a fully sprinkled building. And all my buildings today, as long as they're over 5,000 square feet, are all going to be sprinkled, fully sprinkled. That means you're going to have protection everywhere. And sprinklers like this are designed to go off usually around 155 degrees. So you have a fire in one area, that plume spreads up into that sprinkler head, and once it reaches 155 degrees, the link will either break or drop out of the sprinkler head, and then the water that's behind it will flow. And most residential, even commercial sprinklers for that matter, generally are designed to put a fire out or control it with 1 to 4 sprinkler heads. So it doesn't take much. Most of the fires that we've had controlled with sprinklers, it's only taken the one head to do it. They put about 15 to 30 gallons of water out per minute. So that head up there puts out a decent amount of water, and it operates quickly and early enough that it helps keep the volume of fire down. So then when we show up, we can come in and make sure it's out, make sure everybody's safe, and evacuate that smoke. But 15 to 30 gallons a minute from a sprinkler system, and you think about fire hose, when Natalie's dragging a fire hose into a building to put water on it, she's putting about 150 gallons a minute on the fire. So our fire hoses are going to put a lot more water. If we have sprinklers, we come in, we shut the system down once we know there isn't a problem anymore, and that's to help conserve property, because if we just let it go, we're just going to have a lot of water damage. But our folks are trained to come in and quickly shut that stuff down to help protect property. So that's probably enough about buildings. Anybody have a question on building specific stuff or fire sprinklers, generally speaking?
It's on? No, it's not. Are we going to have to retrofit, install sprinklers in our units?
Yeah. We probably don't want to dive quite into that question yet, but the short answer is no, right? Would I recommend it? All day long. That's sprinklers are your safest bet. Sprinklers are designed to save lives. They give you time to get out from a fire. So all day long, I will advocate for fire sprinklers. But no, generally speaking, that's not something that my recommendation is yes, but I can't force you to do it. So sprinklers, yes, I like them. They're good. But from there, what I want to talk about is if an incident were to happen in your building, what the fire department expects you guys to do, what we would want you to do to respond to a fire alarm if the fire alarms are going off in your building. Being that you don't have sprinkler coverage, and even in my buildings that are fully sprinkled, I still tell people if the fire alarm is going off, you get out of the building until you know there isn't a problem, right? Because we don't always know how well the sprinkler system is doing. You know, has it been maintained? Part of Natalie and my job is to try and make sure buildings are keeping up to date on inspections on those things as well. But you never know if maintenance was done and the system was put into test or shut down for some reason. So getting out of the building in the event of a fire alarm is always the safest bet. And I will tell you guys all day long that that is the safest thing for you to do. However, I do understand that some people either don't move as quick as they once did, or they aren't able to get down the stairs safely. So there are going to be those challenges, right? And what I would recommend, if you are one of those people that can't use the stairs in the event of a fire alarm, my recommendation is that you shelter in place, right? You can stay in your room, but we also would need notice that you're in your room, right? Because you probably don't know, the fire alarm's going off, you don't know if that fire is next to you, below you, above you, you don't know where it is, right? But giving our dispatchers, calling 911 and saying, hey, our fire alarm's going off, I can't get out of my room safely due to inability to, right? Not, if you know there's smoke in the hallway, give them that information, because that's useful information for dispatchers to guide our crews when we show up, that somebody said there's smoke on the 3rd floor, they're going to go there first, right? But let dispatch know that you can't get out safely and what unit you're in. So once we get here and we figure out what the problem is, we may just leave you in your room, right? We may, if you're in a safe place, you're on the other side of the building, you're in the wing, the west wing over there, and the fire is on the east side of the building, we may just leave you over there. You have doors that separate for fire and smoke control throughout the building as well. So that's going to help slow that smoke spread and fire spread to where you guys are located. If it's necessary for life safety, we will effect a rescue to get you out of that unit as we need to if you're close to that fire unit, and that's something that we need to do. So fire alarm goes off. My guidance is all day long, get out of the building until you know what's going on. Your building might have some slight different guidance. I don't know where their plan is at right now. Worst case scenario, I would say, we live in Minnesota, right? So it's cold outside. Even if you were to get to the first floor and you could gather on the first floor in the common space while we're trying to figure out where the problem is, that's still better than potentially being on the floor where the fire is. If you're on the floor where the fire is and your hallway's filled with smoke, you're not going that way anyways, right? So you're going to shelter in place at that point.
Well, wait, I'll bring the microphone to you here, and I just want to follow on what Dave was saying there. And one of the reasons that we have Dave and Natalie here today is so that we can further develop our fire emergency protocol and put into place as guidance for you what is recommended by the experts, the fire department, the firefighters, inspectors for fire safety. And then I would further add on to that, because he is mentioning such things as fire doors and our sprinkler system and so forth. Since I have been here and our team has been in place here, we have worked really hard and really diligently to make sure that things are inspected, that things are up to date, that replacements have been made down in the boiler room where fire safety equipment is, where the pump is, the motor, all of those sorts of things, keeping things up to date, making sure that they're inspected as regularly, at least annually, that they are supposed to be inspected, and that they're working. And I would further mention that all or many of you know that we have removed door stoppers from doors. Those have been removed from fire doors, and that is to further enhance fire safety. And I know that many people don't like having the door stoppers removed on their doors or other doors that they use, and I understand the reasons for that, but the overriding concern is for fire safety, because those are fire doors.
I can expand on that a little bit as well. The door stops are a big one for us. We see them all the time, whether they're door chocks under the door or the flip downs, magnets, whatever they are. They're there and designed, the doors themselves are designed to protect you. You have door closers on your unit doors for a reason. That's so if there is a fire in your unit and you're leaving your unit, the door is going to close behind you and keep that fire contained in the unit and not spread, and hopefully give everybody else a chance to get out of the building as well. Door closers on trash rooms and stuff like that are also important. We've recently been to another multifamily building that had a trash room fire. There was somebody threw something away that ended up starting on fire in the trash room down below. And if you think about that chute that goes from top to bottom, that can spread a lot of smoke and potentially fire if it's not a sprinkled trash chute. So having those things close automatically, I know it's a pain in the butt, we're fighting the door and the things we're carrying, but it is there for your safety in the end and everybody's safety. So go ahead.
I was just going to mention that our doors, have this space underneath for circulation. Mm-hmm. So if we're stuck in our room for a fire, maybe we should wet a big bath towel or rug and cover that space.
Yeah, I would say it's not a bad idea. Code allows for a little bit of a gap at the bottom of the door. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it does allow for a little bit of room there. What I would say is that if you know there's smoke in the hallway, the fire alarms are going off, and you open your door to exit, and the hallway is charged with smoke, and you don't think you can get out that way safely, then I would say yes, close the door. And if you have a larger gap under your door, it wouldn't hurt to, put a towel there to cover that. And then what I always say also is go the furthest away from your entry door, right? Head to a bedroom that's at the back of your unit or something. So the further you get away from that corridor where you are, and close those doors along the way. And then as you're calling our dispatch saying, I can't get out, there's smoke in the hallway, or I just can't get out, and I'm going to be in the back bedroom or wherever you're going to be located. Because then, depending on the situation, if the world's falling apart and we have to set ladders up to get you out a window, we're also close from that standpoint. So,
Okay, I have a question. Thank you. I worked at Fairview Southdale in human resources, and we used to describe to new employees, hospitals are built to contain fire. So typically, we do not evacuate. When a fire goes, we close the doors and stay where we are. The fire doors in the hallways would close automatically, and we were taught not to go through those doors. What is that different here?
yeah, so the difference is that we're in an R occupancy here for residential, and hospitals are institutional occupancies.
Okay.
So the codes are far more stringent around institutional occupancies. Like the code section's much larger there, and very few exceptions. So they generally have to do more things to ensure the fire and life safety. Part of the thing with hospitals is they're fully sprinkled, right? So you have sprinklers, you have corridors that are designed to withstand the fire rating of those spaces. You have specific mechanical dampers, fire dampers in the mechanical system that'll shut down also. So a lot of things play towards that. So what I always tell my new inspectors is when we're looking at code, it always starts with the occupancy type. So you figure out what occupancy you're in, and then you can figure out how the code applies to that occupancy. So it's a good question, though.
I just thought of something. I just thought of something. If we have to evacuate down the stairs, but then the fire doors are closed, we can't open them to get to those exit doors.
Those doors don't lock. They still allow for egress through them.
Will?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, they just close to keep it compartmentalized.
oh,
So.
I thought they were locked.
Yep. Nope. You'll always safe. So I mentioned fire alarms. You all probably have seen them a number of times throughout the years, right? You've had to replace batteries in them, replace the units themselves. What I would recommend for the fire alarms or the smoke alarms is that you make sure that they're getting replaced when they need to be. If you pull them off the wall, there's a date on the back of them, generally speaking, that tells the expiration date. And they usually last anywhere from 7 to 10 years, depending on what model you get. Some new models have sealed batteries, so you don't ever have to replace the battery for the life of the unit. If you have one that has replaceable batteries, replacing them annually at a minimum is recommended from us. So making sure that you're checking on these, because this is going to be your first line of defense. It'll be the first thing that gets your attention for a fire. So making sure that we're checking these regularly. They also have generally a series of different tones that they make for whatever it's trying to tell you, right? It's always going to be a 3-beep noise for a fire activation. So it'll go beep, beep, beep for the fire. If you ever have your alarm going off and it's a prolonged, like maybe it's a quick succession of beeps and then there's a pause, and then there's another quick succession of beeps, and there's a pause. That's usually saying either the batteries are dead or it might be an end of life something. But the tone for the fire alarm is that traditional 3 constant, it won't ever stop for you, just beep, 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 right? And it just keeps going. So just in general, talking about smoke, CO alarms are similar as well. I can't remember, do we have gas appliances in units here? No? Okay. So smoke alarms, super important. I've talked in the past, I think the last time I was out a couple years back, I had mentioned the stovetop fire extinguishers. these get mounted under your hoods. So being that you don't have sprinklers in your units, still the number one leading cause of fires is cooking. And that is across the country and across the world, really. And the reason for that is there's so many opportunities for heat, right? And then you add people in the mix and you put the two together, and we tend to forget about things or get preoccupied with other things. So I would recommend looking into fire stops. You can get them online, Amazon, wherever. I don't promote one place or the other, but stovetop fire extinguishers could be a benefit for you guys if you're still cooking in your units. I know a lot of folks aren't cooking and they're using the kitchen downstairs, which is great because then you don't have to worry about it at all. But if you do still do stovetop cooking, I would recommend getting something like this that I can send that information to you guys as well if need be. Cooking, talking about cooking, super important to keep our stovetops clear, right? I always recommend at least 6 inches on either side, and don't store anything on top of your cooktop, your range, or whatever you have there. Electric ones tend to be worse for us because people feel like it's a flat surface and it's a place to set things. But over the last couple of years, we've had a number of fires because the cooktop got turned on and they had set groceries or something on top of the stovetop.
And don't store anything inside the oven.
That was my next comment. Absolutely. Your oven isn't a storage device, right? So the oven itself or the cooking drawer, we just had a fire, I don't remember what building it was. We had just a couple weeks ago, somebody had a wood cutting board in the bottom drawer and accidentally started the drawer warmer on and eventually ended up smoking up the building. So started a fire in the drawer. The fire made its way out of the oven and started a little bit on the cabinets and the linoleum flooring in front of it as well. So a couple things. Yeah, we got a question. We had one over here first, so hold tight with yours.
Hi, thanks. Earlier you talked about telling dispatch. Are you talking about when we call 911?
If you don't think you can get out safely, yeah, calling 911 and letting them know that the fire alarm's going off and I can't get out safely, whether that's due to smoke or just because you can't physically make it down the stairs. Giving them that heads up is a good idea, yes. Yep.
I have a question. Maybe you have advice for people with walkers, but I can understand not only the difficulty of walking down the steps with a walker, but also a jam up of walkers.
Absolutely.
Maybe you have suggestions for how people avoid that and make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an individual call, but if you're using a walker, I imagine that using stairs is going to be pretty difficult as well, right? If you think you can still get down safely without your walker, you can try, but that might be one of those instances where I have a walker and I don't know that my knees are going to do all these stairs, depending on where you're at. And you might be the one that's calling 911 saying, hey, our hallway's clear outside, but the fire alarm's going off and I can't evacuate, so that's okay too.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you think about those blankets they advertise online all the time about putting out a fire with this wonderful blanket?
Good advertising because everybody asks about it. I say with those, it would take practice, right? You have to get close enough to get it on the fire. And I'd rather have you have a good extinguisher or something in your unit. And that's a nice segue, so thank you. Fire extinguishers, right? This is kind of your traditional fire extinguisher where you pull the pin. The pin sits in the handle, you pull the pin, and then you squeeze the handle together to expel the agent. Yeah, and that's the thing. People don't typically, they haven't used one or they don't have any training in using them. So there are some easier examples. If you go online and search fire extinguishers, they look like a hairspray can almost, right? Where it's just a push from the top or just a pull trigger that if this feels like it's intimidating and you're like, I don't know if I can actually use that, or don't feel comfortable doing it, find one of those extinguishers that might just have that depress button at the top and allow you to do the same thing. But with an extinguisher of any type, generally you're going to be about at least 6 feet away from the fire to spray that fire. So you don't have to get right on top of it. And the thing with the blankets is you got to get pretty close to be able to throw it on there and be successful. So. Yep. So the pin sits in the handle. Yep. There's a little hole that goes through the handle, and you pull that pin out, and then you're able to squeeze it. So, and they had mentioned talking about doing some fire extinguisher training at some point as well. So we might be able to bring that to you guys at some point.
I did.
So,
I asked that question earlier.
yeah. So that might not be a bad idea for folks that are interested in trying to learn how to do that. But there are easier options out there. Like I said, you go online and they just have the quick button on top that works as well.
What would you say about asking a neighbor for help?
In what instance?
Maybe if you can think of an instance where that might be smart or that'd be stupid, maybe both of those.
Maybe both of those. All right. I guess it depends on what you've got going on, right? If you're leaving your unit because there's a fire in your unit, and you're taking the time to go to your neighbor and knock on the door and say, hey, I've got a fire on my stove, I don't know that I want you two going back in the unit to try and deal with that fire. Just depending on what the level of smoke is. Now we're worrying about the products of combustion, carbon monoxide, the things that will end up knocking you out before you're able to get out again. So if you're leaving your unit to go get help in a fire situation, I would say tell somebody there's a fire so we can start the evacuation process, right? Make sure you keep your door closed to keep the smoke from entering the hallway as well. In an instance where it would be applicable, a medical emergency, right? Those are all always important if somebody else is able to help or at least make a phone call for you or whatever that might be. But from a fire scenario, aside from asking their help to maybe get down the stairs or something along those lines to get out, yeah, I think being neighborly is super important and the right thing to do. So, yes, sir. Yeah, somebody have a mic we can pass back there?
This is a question for you, Mitch. I was under the impression that the batteries were replaced annually is that not true? In the fire alarms within the unit?
Michael would be the one, or any of our maintenance techs would be the best one to answer that question, but my understanding is when we're replacing the smoke alarms, which I think we have done recently, we're replacing them with the 10-year batteries. And talking about the fire extinguishers, I've had to use a fire extinguisher to put out a kitchen fire, and I hope those blankets work because I have one of those in my kitchen also. Haven't had to use it.
As long as we're talking about cooking, a couple other things I like to point out, maybe fairly obvious, but making sure handles are off to the sides, right? So we're not bumping pots off the stove. Watching what we're cooking is always important. It's easy in today's world to get distracted by all of the things while we're cooking. So either setting timers if you have something that you're not particularly watching, or maybe carrying a wooden spoon or putting one in your back pocket. So if you happen to forget that you were cooking, you're like, why am I hanging on to this spoon, or why is it in my back pocket? You're like, oh, wait a minute. But that's one of those things. Distractions are huge these days. So.
That's really good sense there, and I'll get back to you here. We have a couple of rules in my house because we have had a kitchen fire and we have had a couple of smoke events, and we have a rule now in our house. We are an aging couple, and we have a rule that if we have something on the stovetop, we are not allowed to leave the kitchen unless the stove has been turned off, and we are not allowed to put anything flammable on the stove top, like a wooden spoon or something, and leave it there at any time, whether you leave or not. You can use it, but you can't rest it, in the pot or put it on the stove or something like that. So there are some very practical things to do to help yourselves, because I know, and my wife knows, that if you have something on the stovetop and you leave the room, you can easily get distracted and forget that you've got a pot on or something, and you can either have a fire or definitely you can have a smoke event. So just practical things to practice.
One of the other things our fire prevention admin likes to point out, she always tells me, the handle for your oven is not a towel rack. It wasn't designed to hold a towel. It's just giving opportunity for fire to spread. That's a handle to open the oven. So she always points that one out, and I chuckle a little bit every time. But it's a good reminder, because there's always that potential that if something's too close to it, that starts on fire as well. So.
Well, my question is, what is the procedure if we have a fire, say in our kitchen? Should we just quick grab our phone and go out in the hall and call 911? Or what should we do? Try to put it out first? What is the procedure if we have a fire?
That's a really good question. Did everybody hear that question? What's the procedure if we do have a fire in our kitchen? What should we do? Do we just leave right away? Do we try and put it out? Do we take our phone? It depends. So there isn't a hard and fast. Getting out is always a good thing, right? So if you grab it could, yes. If you feel comfortable with what you have to try and put it out, right? So if you remember the old trick of sliding a sheet pan over, like if you have a grease fire on your stove, maybe put a cookie sheet over it to try and snuff out that oxygen. That's always a good option. A baking soda could work as well. Yep. Some extinguishers, that's pretty much what they use inside of them. So trying to put it out if you feel comfortable with that. If you have an extinguisher, if you happen to have a blanket and you feel like using it, trying is okay, right? But I don't want to tell somebody, yes, you should always try and put that fire out, and then you try and do it and you get hurt in the process because you weren't comfortable with what that looked like, or the fire was too big and you didn't judge it right. So I would say if you feel comfortable putting it out, slowing it down is always a good thing, right? Because you don't have the sprinklers in your units. So if that continues to grow, it will grow into a pretty good fire. Kitchen fires, they make a lot of damage and a lot of smoke, and will put your unit out of commission for months and months while it gets restored. So if you feel comfortable, if you have used an extinguisher, if you have a blanket, have a pan to set on top of it. If there's a fire in your stove or in your oven, leave it shut, right? Because it'll eventually burn itself out. And the ovens are designed for heat. So generally speaking, that fire isn't going to make it out of the oven as long as you leave it closed. But as soon as you open it up, you're going to give it oxygen. It's going to burn more, and it's going to make your unit all full of smoke as well. So answer your question? I would call 911, yeah, because remember, your fire alarm for the building isn't going to go off unless somebody pulls a pull station on their way out of the building, or there's enough smoke in the hallway to set off the hallway smoke detection that you have out in the hallway. Yeah. The one thing I don't remember, and we should look into it, do any of your units have heat detectors? We should look. I'll look at the fire alarm report maybe and see if they've noted it. But some older buildings, that was the code back in the day, was that you could have a heat detector or a rate of rise detector that would sense that level, and then that would activate the fire alarm. Now our heat detectors are fire sprinklers, right? So 155 degrees, and that's going to go off. But yeah. You don't have a mic yet. You go ahead. We'll get you a mic.
Okay, you probably, I assume you know that a couple of years ago, we had the question of putting sprinklers in our units.
Yeah.
And it was decided that they were not necessary in terms of the construction of the building. If you would explain that, there are probably a lot of people here who weren't here at that time.
Sure.
to get that explanation.
We'll pass your mic up here when I'm done answering. Yeah, so the reason we couldn't require it in your building is technically your height requirement is under 75 feet, which is the height for high-rise buildings. Had it been, if your highest floor would have been at 75 feet, then we would have had enough leverage to say, yes, you need to sprinkle it because our fire apparatus, we can't reach all of your space and sprinkling. So it is a height thing, not necessarily the concrete. You're fortunate that it's concrete, but that didn't really have anything to do with specifically. So it was all designed in the height. With that said, when this building was built, that sidewalk on your west side of the building was supposed to be a fire apparatus road. Technically, it still is, but you have a bunch of trees out there, so our ladder truck isn't going to be able to set up over there and get anybody out. And we also can't affect a rescue in this back portion of your building either, because we can't drive over that parking garage there with the ladder truck. So the downside is there's a lot of unprotected space that we can't get people out with ladders. We don't have ladders tall enough to get to your highest levels. So that's why getting out safely, get out, or someday if you guys decide that sprinklering is within the budget, I would say do that, because that's, in the end, that's the best protection you'll ever have, aside from not being in the building. You first. Yep.
I have a question. Either I have misunderstood the policy in this building, or I have not. It's just I don't understand it, because I've been here 4 years, and about at least twice, perhaps 3 times, there have been, I think it was just the odor of smoke, not alarm, but the odor. And we were told to always stay in our units, not to leave. You're telling us to leave.
Because I'm not going to take that liability. If you don't leave the building and there's a fire and you die in the fire, and I told you to stay put, guess who's responsible?
I've heard that.
Yep.
Stay put. I don't know how many times. Stay in your unit. They say we'll come and get you.
And I don't know who was telling you that. So I've been with Edina for 16 years, and that isn't guidance that I've heard. So it's always safest to exit the building, right? That's, in the end, I'm going to always say get out of the building. I understand there's times where you can't, and that's why we talk about those times for the people that can't make it out. Odor of smoke is a little bit different than the fire alarm going off, right? If it's an odor and there wasn't enough to set the alarm off, then we'll come out and investigate and see if we can help find it, right? Or figure that out. The other thing you guys have going for you here is that you have staff here 24 hours a day. So whether their procedure is to help try and identify what the problem is, to get you guys to be able to stay put, is also something. The sooner they identify that it isn't a problem, the sooner we can say, don't worry, you don't have to get out of the building, right? So.
I am so glad you asked that question. And I have been one of those people that if all of you recall, or those of you that were here when we did the fire emergency, LaDamian did a really great job of going through all kinds of emergency procedures here. And we did discuss fire emergencies. And we had in our protocols at that time to shelter in place. And we had received some guidance that we could make our own plan for fire emergencies. And I was somewhat doubtful about that, and that is why Fire Marshal Dave is here today, because I wanted for us, I wanted for all of you to hear what the protocol is, what the recommendation is from a fire emergency professional, from a firefighter EMT, somebody who does inspections, because we want to give the best information to all of you. And Dave he mentioned the word liability, and liability is something that is in my lexicon all of the time. And if the fire department is giving the information that the best protocol is to evacuate the building, I, or we, our team, is not going to give a counter protocol that says shelter in place, other than the circumstances that Dave said. If you simply are not able to navigate the stairs, then perhaps in that situation, that is the best thing to do. So we have Dave, we have Natalie here to work with us and to give us advice as fire emergency professionals. And the advice that is being given here today is the advice that we will be giving going forward.
Can I have a question? Okay, I'm sorry to compare it to healthcare. In a hospital, of course, there's a lot of different codes. We never said fire. Oh, I'm sorry. Better? Is this better? We never said fire. The words were code red. I wondered, and then there was an all clear when it was done. Do we do that here? Do we say?
I don't know. We'd have to look a little bit closer at your fire alarm system to see what kind of communication, or generally speaking, if you have any sort of communication across floors of your building. There are voice evacuation fire alarm systems that potentially you could use to say it isn't a fire, or, we're getting a little bit into the weeds, and I think Mitch and I we'd have to work together on things. But if we know the fire is in that side of the building, right, and you've got fire protection, fire doors that are separating that wing of the building from this wing, potentially this wing might not have to evacuate, right? Just because there's going to be, the spread to this side is going to be far slower. Like it has to go through the corridors, right, which we know are sprinkled, so the spread through the corridors is going to be limited. The thing when you ask the question about leaving or sheltering in place, the downside is we don't always know what the problem is or how big the problem is when it happens, right? If the fire alarm doesn't go off right away and the person's sleeping in the unit, and God forbid that they die, the fire is growing so much that they succumb to the fire and never made it out into the hallway, and now the building alarm hasn't even gone off yet, and now you have a whole entire potentially residential unit that now is on fire. The person above them is the next one to be in threat, right? You're concrete, so it's not going to go through the floor, but what it does is it'll break through the windows at some point when it gets hot enough, and it'll break the windows of the floor above when it gets hot enough and spread the fire that way. So until we know is why I can't say, I can't comfortably, especially in your building where it's a non-sprinkled building, I can't comfortably say, it'd be safe for you to stay put without knowing what the problem is.
We have an underground garage here populated with several hundred cars. And each of those cars has a tank for gasoline and a battery. Should a fire occur in the garage, do you still recommend everybody exiting the building, or?
We'd probably have a little bit more time to get you out, but a scenario like that would be really messy, less for you guys and much more so for Natalie as she's going in to fight the fire, because you're going to go into a dark space, smoke-filled space, trying to find the car that's on fire or multiple cars that are on fire. I'm pretty sure your garage is sprinkled, so I think we've got that going for us. That's going to help contain the fire, so it'll slow it down. But in a scenario like that, it's not going to spread from there up to your units very quickly. So we'll come and assess the situation and figure out who we have to evacuate. The downside is if that fire has time to grow, that smoke will eventually migrate up, right? And it will find the cracks and the crevices in the building, and you'll end up getting some smoke throughout, depending on how big that fire is. So, yeah, I'm not so worried about the gas tanks. They're less of a concern. It's all the plastic that's on cars nowadays that scares me, and electric vehicles and that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah.
We
I
have
a
about 10
concern.
more minutes left here, and I think there might be some more questions. I want to just ask Dave if you have any more information that you want to share. Make sure you get in any important information before we take any more questions.
I think we covered a lot of material. I think we talked about some fire prevention, some fire safety topics. So I think sometimes it's helpful. People have the questions, and it's also good to get those out of the way. So I'm comfortable. Natalie, you got anything you want to add? No? All right. Then we can spend a few minutes answering specific questions and see what we come up with.
Something that came to mind. We have 4 stairwells in the building, and at the bottom, on the first floor of each stairwell, is a door into the main common areas. That's locked.
Sure.
So if it's 10 below zero and you go down the stairway, you go outside. You don't go into the building. And I think people need to think about that. If they're going to go down the stairway to escape a fire in the middle of winter, grab a coat first.
That is very true. That's the downside of Minnesota for sure.
Would it be appropriate to use the pull cords in our kitchen or bathroom or whatever if we see smoke or fire?
If you've got something, that'll alert the front desk, I think, pretty quick that you've got a problem. So I would say it's not going to hurt, right? Along with you calling 911 and letting them know, hey, I do have a fire in my kitchen. I'm at 7,500. Because, like I said, sometimes that alarm, depending on how much smoke you have, will be a little slower to respond. Yes, ma'am.
I think this question is for Mitch, because I am still able to walk and run down the stairway.
Yeah.
So I wish that Mitch would show the map of the building, or at least the floor, to show us that where we live, and when the fire comes up, then there is the fire doors, then who in which apartment should get to which way to go to which stairways.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing, because I prefer that. The second thing is I'm thinking about my friends who are elder and they cannot walk down the stairways. Then do we have a list, and how do we know, how can we help them? That kind of things. And I think we need also practice of emergency.
Sure.
Yeah.
The list, it's always hard to maintain a list. I get the question a lot, if we have specific people, but it's so hard to maintain those lists and ensure that they're accurate and that sort of thing. It's something you could work on with your building. If you know now that you're not going to be the one that's going down those stairs, and you wanted to make sure you had some sort of list at the front desk potentially, that could be useful, But it ends up being a logistical challenge to try and keep that up to date. And then we potentially are checking rooms where people aren't even home. Maybe you're out of town or whatever that is, or so. There's good and bad to that one. Mapping, having some sort of wayfinding is always not a bad idea, and I don't know what exists in the hallways right now for specifics, but and I'm trying to think of the orientation. I think orientation of fire doors has been a few months since I've done a walkthrough, but there's a number of them, I think at the corridor ends, if I remember right. And then between each wings as well, there's doors. So there's 2 sets of doors on each floor, or 3, or
2.
Yep. Not third floor and above. Okay. All right.
This is more for Mitch too. This is more for Mitch too. In the brochure I read, as a new member, they said that if the smoke alarm goes off in our unit, it it's received by security at that time. Is that correct? And so, but we would still call 911, not security?
Well, I think your first option should always be to call 911.
Okay.
Thank you.
What type of, maybe we'll look at that sometime, just what the fire alarm, in-unit fire alarms, if they're tied to the overall fire panel or if it's just a security panel that you guys have in that office. We should look sometime together.
I think they're tied just to our security
Okay.
station.
Sure. But good, because that's early notification, so.
This question comes from one of our viewers on television, from television land.
All right.
And I'm not sure about the physics here, so I'll let you figure this out. This person asks, what about negative pressure in the stairwells to keep from filling with smoke? I'm not sure how it answered that, but I'll let you figure that one out.
Somebody knows just enough to get in trouble. Another high-rise requirement. So once you hit that 75 feet, at 75 feet, there's a bunch of other codes. Speaking of the institutionals, once you start going up higher, the codes start becoming more restrictive. So there is positive pressure in the stairwells for high-rise buildings. So that what that does is help move the smoke through. So when people are coming off from a fire floor potentially, that now your stairwell doesn't fill with smoke as well as people are trying to get out, right? So yes, it is a thing. I don't believe your building has it, but I know you're not a high-rise, so it wouldn't have been required, but whether some form of smoke evac from the stairwell exists, maybe. 3300 Edinburgh, I know they have it in their stairwells, so. Good question, though.
I got you, Kathy.
We have quite a few people who live on the 9th floor, and you're talking about going down the stairs. I understand we have, like an hour and a half to do this, but are we in any danger if this is like on the 6th floor of our evacuating right down to where the fire is? And what should we do? Should we still do it?
Your aim is to get out of the building, right? Because you on the 9th floor don't know if that fire is on the 9th floor, on the 8th floor, where that is, right? Until we have a better idea, once you know or have a better idea of where the problem is, then you can start scaling things a little bit. But those initial moments of an emergency and a fire alarm, we don't have a whole lot of information often, so until we know more about what the problem is and what's going on. So whether that's, maybe you had a cooking fire and the cooking fire is out and you're getting a hold of the front desk and letting them know, hey, I had a fire, but it's out. That information for security is helpful because then you could slow down some of that unnecessary evacuation of the building. So being responsive to those things, giving information to the people that need it to make good decisions to help keep you guys safe from freezing outside when it's negative 30 and that sort of thing. So
I am just going to take the opportunity for, I think it's the 37th time, to plug our communication systems that we have in place here with our One Call Now. And that gives us the ability to communicate very quickly with all members who have their communication information, cell phone, landline, and email address registered with us. We can do that on property. We can do that from off property. And so how many people in here have registered your communication information with us so that you get any emergency communications? It's very, very important because it gives us the opportunity to communicate with you within a matter of a minute, 2 minutes, even 3 minutes, and we can potentially be able to give further information when you're up there on the 9th floor on the west side or the 8th floor on the east side to let you know more specific information about where a fire is or whatever kind of emergency it is in the building to further guide you. So now for the 38th time, if any members or if you know of any members who have not yet registered your cell phone number, landline number, email address with us, please take the opportunity to do that because it could be life-saving at some point.
All right. You said we're done at 3-ish. Anybody have any last-minute question? You got one back there? All right, you're my last.
Just one quick comment is each unit, it has a hardwired smoke detector, and then you have the battery-operated smoke detectors. So do not remove your hardwired smoke detectors to try to change your batteries. And also, just from experience, don't put a fire extinguisher underneath your sink because if your stove's on fire, it's going to be hard to get to your sink. Maybe put the fire extinguisher in your front hall closet so you have better access if you have a stove fire.
Good point. That's actually a great, under the sink is never a good idea because that's always where the area of the fire, right? And you're less likely to go there than having it towards your exit. I always like it towards your exit so you can get it on your way out if you feel comfortable. So, all right. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here, Dave and Natalie. I have a special affinity for firefighters. One of my sons is a firefighter and EMT.
Nice.
Did I just turn this off?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Is this what they brought?
Absolutely.
You wanted to have Mitch make a cup? I have to give my son Joel.
Yes, I was like, you look so